How do the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals apply to the built environment? In this video, we're going to go through a universal framework that provides a roadmap to all disciplines across the built environment to meet these goals. Let's begin. The 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs for short, is an ambitious universal target to save the world by 2030. But since 2015, when the goals were agreed by all 193 UN member states at the United Nations Summit, we have been scrambling to get there. Although we make quite a lot of progress, nearly 5 years from our deadline, it feels like we're still very far and risk falling short. So, how do we even begin? What are these 17 Sustainable Development Goals and how can we relate them to the built environment? It can be overwhelming to think about crises in the world, wars, climate change, poverty. How do you even start to solve world hunger or eliminate inequalities? And especially in the context of your job, assuming that you're not working in a charity. The truth is, we can't do it on our own. We need to do it together, and we need a clear plan, a defined set of common goals that we, humanity, agrees on. A target for everything that we do that can translate and apply to all sectors, including the built environment. In 2007, the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change produced a report that provided some robust evidence that human activities were the primary driver of global warming observed since the mid-20th century. They warned that climate change impacts could have devastating effects on our planet. And that sounded the alarm for the UN to do something. There were several summits, conferences, and agreements which laid the foundations of what we know today as the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and which really represent an ambitious and comprehensive blueprint for making the world a better and more sustainable place by 2030. Those goals are broad and cover pretty big themes like poverty, hunger, peace, and justice. And at first glance, the goals seem quite general and not really relating to architecture or buildings, except maybe for Goal 11, which is Sustainable Cities and Communities. But actually, most of those goals, except for a few that need to be met at policy level, relate either directly or indirectly to the built environment. The Climate Framework Initiative is an international effort supported by more than 90 organizations across several sectors, with the aim to ensure that direct and indirect decisions within the built environment are properly acknowledged against the UN Sustainable Development Goals. The main aim is to create a common language around climate change and upskill our common knowledge and collective capacity to really tackle climate change. This is the first framework that contextualizes the 17 UN SDGs within the built environment. It's organized around 6 main themes that relate to the goals, and together with their sub-themes, aim to cover all the disciplines in the sector as much as possible. The framework doesn't provide the information per se, but it guides you towards the information that you need to know and what you need to consider when making decisions, whether you're an architect, an interior designer, a quantity surveyor, a project manager, etc. The framework is organized into a background section that provides guidance to the essential knowledge that relates climate change to the built environment. And that include knowing about the scientific evidence, the international legislation, the global policies, etc. These are also the common threads to all these themes and cover SDGs 8 and 17. And then an outcome section which specifically focuses on these 6 overarching themes and breaks them up into sub-themes that need to be considered. The first section is human factors, and it ensures that 3 UN SDGs are met, which are 3, 11, and 10. And it covers topics in relation to people, health and well-being, behavior and social value. And basically, it lists all the themes and subjects that are worth understanding and considering within this topic. That could be, for example, understanding what diversity mapping means or considering lighting and glare in design. The second and third section are circular economy and energy and carbon. And together they cover SDGs 12, 17, and 7. And they focus on resources, their use and maintenance, and procurement to encourage endless recycling/reuse, but also on energy use, carbon emissions, and offsetting in the built environment. For example, upskilling in this section could mean learning more about responsible and ethical sourcing of materials, and then specifying better materials in the project we're working on. The fourth is water, and it's meeting SDGs 6 and 14. And this section focuses on water use, harvesting and recycling, as well as climate change's impact on natural bodies. The sub-themes include sustainable urban drainage systems, for examples, which are now a requirement for planning applications, and therefore everybody should be aware of them. The fifth is ecology and biodiversity, and this meets SDG 15. And this covers efficient land use, nature-based solutions, and sustainable food production, among others. Urban farms, for example, is a really interesting theme that isn't explored often in practice. And finally, the sixth theme is connectivity and transport, which is covering SDG number 9. And this focuses on how people, places, and cities connect through sustainable urban planning and transportation. This, again, is a very important theme that most of us need to understand more. So all in all, the work that we do in the built environment affects 12 Sustainable Development Goals out of 17. A great place to start learning about these themes is Mina Hassman's RIBA Climate Guide, which goes into most of these subjects in detail, providing context, case studies, and easy-to-understand diagrams, and that summarizes the latest research relating to the themes. So, say for example, we want to learn more about waste as a resource in the circular economy theme, we can navigate to the chapter and find the section and then see that the sub-themes are highlighted and contextualized. Some of these strategies are also presented in nice diagrams. I'll leave a link to the book in the description box, as well as where to find and download the framework. The way I am using it as an academic in the built environment is ensuring that all 6 categories are captured in the sustainability module that I'm teaching. And then I am focusing and zooming in on the themes that are particularly relevant to my students, like circular economy, ethical sourcing of materials, life cycle assessments, and so on. In the framework, there will be some themes that will be more relevant to you than others, depending on your job and the kind of decisions that you make as a built environment professional. Whether it's specification or procurement, whether you're working at room scale or city scale, but it's a really good starting point for focusing the narrative. I encourage you to download this framework and look at these themes and sub-themes in detail, if only to get an understanding of what you know and where you think you might need to know more. This is the very first step to achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals, but also to make sure that our decisions and actions aren't actually having a negative impact on the environment and setting us back. I explored recently one of these factors, which is the healing power of daylight in our buildings, and this video right here is a good starting point if you want to dive into the subject. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.